Hello, sisters and brothers. Our devotional for today, for June 15, is a reflection on My Utmost for His Highest, a series of devotionals written and compiled by Oswald Chambers. You can always find the link for the daily devotional at utmost.org. And today's devotional, just like yesterday, is titled Get Moving. And for this, Chambers returns to 2 Peter chapter 1, a set of verses that we looked at about a month ago. And I'm going to read verses 5 through 7 from 2 Peter chapter 1. For this very reason, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness, and to godliness mutual affection, and to mutual affection love. As I mentioned, the title of this devotional is Get Moving, where Chambers looks at also add to your faith from verse 5 of 2 Peter chapter 1. In the matter of drudgery, Peter said in this passage that we have become partakers of the divine nature and that we should now be giving all diligence, concentrating on forming godly habits, verses 4 and 5. We are to add to our lives all that character means. No one is born either naturally or supernaturally with character. It must be developed. Nor are we born with habits. We have to form godly habits on the basis of the new life God has placed within us. We are not meant to be seen as God's perfect, bright, shining examples, but to be seen as the everyday essence of ordinary life exhibiting the miracle of His grace. Drudgery is the test of genuine character. The greatest hindrance in our spiritual life is that we will only look for big things to do. Yet, Jesus took a towel and began to wash the disciples' feet. John 13:3-5. We have all those times when there are no flashes of light and no apparent thrill to life, where we experience nothing but the daily routine with its common everyday tasks. The routine of life is actually God's way of saving us between our times of great inspiration which come from Him. Don't always expect God to give you His thrilling moments, but learn to live in those common times of the drudgery of life by the power of God. It is difficult for us to do the adding that Peter mentioned here. We say we do not expect God to take us to heaven on flowery beds of ease, and yet we act as if we do. I must realize that my obedience, even in the smallest detail of life, has all of the omnipotent power of the grace of God behind it. If I will do my duty, not for duty's sake, but because I believe God is engineering my circumstances, then at the very point of my obedience, all of the magnificent grace of God is mine through the glorious atonement by the cross of Christ. So yesterday in Chambers' devotional, he talked about the circumstances of life, and I think the way that we view that is very important for our spiritual walk and our spiritual journey and for our faith. If we see the circumstances of life as something that's either being done to us or against us or even for us, then we start to allow ourselves to kind of seep into those circumstances. We become part of the circumstances. But I think what Chambers is getting at here is that we are God's child no matter what the circumstances, no matter where we find ourselves. So do you see the circumstances around you, even in your everyday life, to be something that God is doing for the greater good, for God's kingdom? Or do you see it as something that's kind of like an obstacle? If we want to develop our character, as those verses in 2 Peter chapter 1 would say, add this to your faith, and add this to your faith, and add this to your faith, we can't be controlled by circumstances. What we have to do is allow ourselves to be examined by the Holy Spirit, to spend some time, some quiet time with God, examining our day, our life, our emotions, the choices that we made, how we responded to someone, and say, how was I developing what God is doing within me? How was that adding to my faith? Was I adding love? Was I adding godliness? Was I adding perseverance? And spending time reflecting on those will allow us to be what Chambers says is the light no matter where we go. We're exhibiting God's grace even in the smallest of circumstances, or what appear to be the smallest of circumstances. So don't look for the big things. Look for what God is doing for you, with you, in the small things and allow yourself to abide and add to your faith. Thank you as always for listening. Be safe and stay well.